And then I'm also going to share my screen here. Okay, so we will go ahead and get started, and hopefully I'll be able to see people as they want to get in so I can admit them. There we go. Okay, welcome to the annual shareholders meeting, normally held in May, but delayed a little bit this year, just because we're trying to get a few things together for the meeting and different things going on. But glad to have everybody who's joining us. The Mount Air Improvement Corporation Board of Directors is myself as the board chair, Greg Bartlett, who is one of our board members, Matt Benjamin, Mike McGaughy, Andrea Blassie, and then Andre Nita is our secretary treasurer. We're going to go ahead and start off with the treasurer's report. Andy, do you need me to let you share your screen, or are you just going to do this verbally?
No, I'm just going to do it verbally. That's fine.
Okay, that's fine. So if anybody has any questions, go ahead and ask.
Okay, so as far as account balances are concerned, we have $21,263.04 in our checking account, and then we have $3,141 in our savings account. The second quarter bill has been sent, and we do have, I believe, last time we spoke about 13 outstanding balances, and I know you're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Right.
We do have a couple of expenses that I can go over, or if you want to cover it, it's entirely up to you coming up, but I think that that's being covered in a different part of the meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think I'll cover those, and if I miss anything, you can chime in.
Okay, so that's all for my part of the deal.
Okay, now I did want to particularly point out that we're not going to do a third quarter billing because we do anticipate that by the time we hit third quarter, the system will be pretty much done, and if we overlap a few days into, into the third quarter, well, we will, but it's not going to be significant in the big scheme of things, and there's really not any point in doing a third quarter billing. So we're not going to do that. We'll kind of explain how we're going to handle this as we get into it. Okay. The other thing is I did want to mention that even though we're not going through detailed financials in this meeting, it's just kind of difficult to do. If you want to see those, Andre does have complete reports that we have gotten from our third-party accountant that has prepared those and put them into QuickBooks. If you recall, that's something that we did several years ago when there was some concern that maybe there wasn't enough outside oversight of the finances. So we did engage a third-party accounting person that pulls this all together and has the reconciliations or has all of the reports. And I think one of the things she sent to Andre here recently was all of the detailed expenses all the way back, I think, to 2016. So there is a lot of detailed information available if anybody is interested in that, and contact Andre and he can get that to you or go over it with you if you prefer. Does that make sense, Andre?
Perfect, of course.
Okay, good. All right. Okay, so some significant things that have happened since our last meeting. One of them is a real positive thing. If you recall, back in the fall of 2019, Mount Air Improvement had lent to the Mount Air Water District $9,000 to provide the water district with some initial operating expenses. This money had become available because we had sequestered a certain amount, well, I think we had sequestered $9,000 for emergency repairs in case we had another break. And this money originally came from the emergency loan that we got from the EPA that everybody paid for with an assessment for that year. I think we paid that off in the summer of 2000,
Yes.
or summer of 19. But what happened in the fall of 19 is that we entered into a contract with Delco by which they would repair any breaks that we had. And the billing for that would actually be folded into the cost of the overall water project so that those expenses would be paid over the course of 30 years at no interest. So that took a lot of the burden off of immediate burden off of the shareholders, although ultimately, those expenses do have to get paid for, but they get paid for over a long period of time with no interest. And so we had that $9,000 available to lend to the water district to get them started. Once the water district got things pulled together to the point where Delco could provide some funding to the water district out of the project, then the water district was able to pay Mount Air Improvement back, and that did happen this past January. So part of the assets that we have on hand, which are higher than the normal $15,000 that we target, is that $9,000 that came back from the water district to Mount Air Improvement. So that's one significant thing that happened since last shareholder meeting. The other big things, of course, have to do with the Delco project. There was the contract went out for bid last fall and was awarded. All of the easements had been obtained. Mount Air Water District did complete the assessment process, went through all of the legal steps that enabled the assessment to be put in place. And the assessment won't actually begin showing up in people's property taxes for a while because we have to wait until the construction is complete and all of the final bills are in and we know what the total cost of the project is. And at that point is when the assessment will be levied. So it'll be a little while before that assessment starts to show up along with your property tax bill. It could be next summer even. I'm not sure of the timing of that, so don't hold me to that. The other thing that happened, of course, is that construction contracts were signed and the work has started. And I was driving up Plumtree Drive today, and a couple of the folks from GE Baker were testing flushing a hydrant down on Plumtree. So there is water in the system all the way down to the end of Plumtree, down by 315. I had kind of expected to see them drilling under 315 yet this week. I do see some fresh oops markings down there, so maybe that's going to happen. But that's one of the next thing that's going to go on is the drilling under 315 and then construction starting to the east side of 315. Pretty much all of the mains are in other than that, with the exception of a little bit of a section to the east or to the north of Mulberry where it has to cut across through the yard and then down to 315 and then along 315 to Bill Evans. And then they'll have to drill under 315 to the new house that's being completed there because they're going to be part of the service as well. So the mains west of 315 are pretty much completed. So the system completion where everybody is expected to be on Delco water, using Delco water, should be early to mid-August. And at that point, the Mount Air Improvement System is going to get shut down. We do have a update call with Delco on Thursday night. And so anybody that wants to hop on that call can get a more thorough update about that project. So those are the most significant things that have gone on since then. Now, the main thing that we have to talk about tonight is what's happening to Mount Air Improvement after the water system is shut down. At one time, we had talked about possibly leaving some funds in the organization to continue as perhaps a community or neighborhood association for the preservation of Mount Air. We really, as a board, decided against that because in looking at the charter of the corporation, most of the things that charter provides for really had not been done as moderate improvement anyway, because it talks about sewer, it talks about roads, it talks about things that are now going to be handled either by Sharon Township or the Water District. Um, and it also is something where we feel that if there is a need for a neighborhood preservation organization, that that's something that should be really done separately. And that it, if somebody or a group of people want to pull something like that together, they can create a new organization to do that. So we felt that it was best that we simply close out, get all of the expenses taken care of, get all of the monies collected that we need to collect, and then distribute the net assets to the shareholders and essentially liquidate the organization. Um, so what we're going to talk about a little bit next is what that liquidation plan looks like, and what the shareholder equity payout plan is, and then when we're going to actually dissolve the corporation. So I think maybe what I want to do is, before I go into the actual plan of dispersing the assets, I think we do want to vote on this resolution. I've emailed this resolution out, and I think Andy made sure that everybody got this. If they weren't on email, that at least got it in snail mail. So I would like to um, first of all, ask if anybody wants me to read through the resolution, or if what you've already gotten and what's on the screen is adequate. So if you're trying to talk, you might be on mute, but I'm not hearing anybody saying they want me to read through this. But essentially, it's saying that the board of directors can use its best judgment to liquidate things and then pay people out. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like. So I would like to call for any votes that people would like to make in person now, that perhaps you have not submitted either by email or in person to Andy yet. So if you would like to vote, just unmute yourself, announce your name and what your vote is.
Hi, Bill. It's Mike and Lindy McGahee, and
Yes.
yes.
You vote yes, okay.
Huh?
Thank you. Anybody else?
This is Laura Coonsey. I vote yes.
Okay. I guess I should vote too. I vote yes.
This is Carol Ballog, and I'm curious as to how you're going to get rid of the land. Will that be offered to everybody?
Yeah, it'll be offered to everybody. And in fact, I think I did say that in the email that I sent this resolution out, that anybody is welcome to bid on that. Right now, I have sent a letter to the two property owners that are right next to that piece of property, thinking that they're the most likely ones that would be interested. And both of them have said they're interested. But it's certainly not restricted to them. Anybody that wants to bid on that land is certainly going to be welcome to do that. And we will probably enlist the services of a realtor that I know that might be willing to do this pro bono, to make sure it's handled, properly, and all the right paperwork is done. And we'll make sure that it's, people are given notice that it's available.
Okay. Has there been an appraisal done of that land?
The county auditor, which is the only number I have to go by right now, lists the market value at $5,000. The tax value is, quite a bit less than that, of course, it usually is. But
Yeah.
That's what the county auditor site lists. Now, whether we
I
get
think you
that or
need an
more, or
appraisal.
whatever, depends.
I think it would be smart to get an appraisal. My house just appraised it about twice what the auditor's office has it.
Yeah, it's not unusual for the auditor's office to have things appraised a little bit low. And I guess part of the question is the cost of an appraisal versus the incremental amount that we might get for it. Laura, you
Yeah.
raised your hand there?
Yeah, I'm just saying, as a realtor, that's generally doing compensation or comps is part of the process. So land, especially land that's not developable because it's a small piece that can't really contain a home or anything like that, it generally is not valued at the same level as the same amount of land associated with a home. So when you do the comparables, and there are plenty around there, it'll be pretty easy to see. But again, if multiple people are bidding, it could drive it up a little bit. But generally with something like that, the greatest value is to the person that owns the adjacent lots, because it allows them to expand their use, and it has more value to them than somebody from the outside that really couldn't do anything with it independent of an adjacent parcel. So that's part of the process. An appraiser coming in is going to do the same comps review, and we of course have the appraiser for the Mount Air Water District who did appraisals of the properties pre and post water lines, and we can go through some of that. But whoever ends up listing it, selling it, or whatever, that should be part of what they offer.
Okay, thanks, Laura.
Sure.
Right. And just, we expect that the property would become available, mid-late August or into the fall. We don't really know. And we'll kind of go through some of the expenses that there are going to be associated with making that ready to sell too. So anyway, any other verbal votes on the resolution?
Yes, it's Leonard and Ruth Weinsteiger. We vote yes.
Okay, thank you.
Bill, I don't know if I said I vote yes. Carol Ballog.
I'm sorry? Oh, Carol?
I'm not sure if I said I vote yes.
Okay, so it is yes, right?
Yes.
Okay, you get that, Andy? Okay, Andy, if we don't have any other verbal votes, have you got a tally of what you've gotten on emails and such?
We got 17 votes in the email for yes and 6 right now, so that makes 23, and no votes.
Okay, and what I had put out in the initial communication is that if there was not a response, that we would consider it a yes vote.
Yes.
So I would say that resolution does pass. Okay. All right, so let's now take a look at, I'm going to change my screen sharing, so just bear with me. And I'm going to share a different screen. I'm going to share, make sure I share the right one. Okay, can you see my little spreadsheet? Would somebody just let me know if you can see the spreadsheet?
Yes, we can.
You can, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Okay, so first of all, big red letters, this is just an estimate. The final values will be determined, but I wanted to show people how we're going to come up with what we end up dispersing to the shareholders, okay? Right now, we've got about $24,000 in cash as of today. We also have about $6,000 in accounts receivable for shareholders that have not paid their last bill, and some a little further in arrears. But that does count as a current asset of the corporation. So add those two together, we've got about $30,000 in current assets. We also have some assets that might be able to be liquidated. We've talked a little bit about this. We will probably, when we return the propane tank, there's going to be some propane left in it. Well, I talked to the propane company, said it might be $200-300 worth that they would give us credit for, or give us a check for after they take the tank back, because it's just a rental tank. We have water pumps and controllers and injectors. I talked a couple of times to the guy that services our pumps, and he is kind of keeping an eye out for a buyer for those, but he said it's kind of difficult for used pumps. He did say that he would be willing to take those on consignment. And, you know, if somebody is able to, you know, if he's able to sell those, then we could maybe get something for those. I was hoping we could get something for them because, you know, that they were expensive to put in, you know, a couple, $3,000 to put in that last 3-horse pump. So I was hoping we'd be able to get a buyer for those, but I'm not including any value for those yet because we don't have a buyer yet. He also mentioned when I talked to him today that once he pulls those out, that they really almost need to be stored in water so that they don't dry out and corrode. Because after a number of months, if they're stored dry, then they won't be usable anymore. So I'd be more than happy to get a volunteer to help try to sell those on eBay, and I can give anybody the specs that wants to try to help do that. And while I'm saying that, I think I would be more than happy to get help from anybody to get some of these things taken care of and try to sell these as best we can. The generator, I'm estimating $3,000 because a new 10 kilowatt is roughly 5,000. I've got 2 people interested, one of which is the guy that services the thing. So I think I should be able to get something halfway decent for the generator itself. I got a couple of small pieces, a heater, dehumidifier, compressor. It doesn't amount to much. The big question mark is that 5,000 gallon storage tank. And right now I've got Mike Santone, who's our Central District Office Supervisor for the EPA, said that he would put out the word to water systems around the state to see if anybody is in need of a 5,000 gallon water tank. If we're not able to find somebody that actually wants to buy that as a water tank, then I've talked to a metal scrap dealer who said they would be willing to buy it, but I don't have a quote on that yet. So I've just left that blank at the moment. My understanding is that what they were telling me is that I would be better off to call a hauling company, one of these big heavy moving companies that could come out and plop the thing on a truck and haul it out of there to take it to their place versus having them do it because they would mark up that hauling charge. So I'll probably arrange that directly with a hauling company and then, you know, see what they will give me for the metal. Hopefully have those numbers before I make a commitment to anything. So we have 2 different options of getting rid of that storage tank. I don't know if we're going to be able to get more for it than it costs to get it out of there. So I've just left that blank at this point. So that's a big unknown. So I'm not including the value of that asset at all in this calculation. For the land, I put down the $5,000 from the auditor's office. Whether we get that or not, again, is a big question. We might get more than that. We might get less than that. So again, this is all just my best guess as of today. So if in fact those things that I think that we're going to be able to sell, we sell about for what I think we could, that'd be about $8,500 in cash that we could raise from liquidating those assets. Now, there's going to be some expenses that happen between now and the time that we're ready to disperse anything. We're going to have to pay a little property tax. We're going to have a couple more months worth of propane tank renewal. I put down there a Secretary of State filing, but I don't think we're going to have to pay anything on that because if we decide to just let it go, we can just neglect to respond when our corporation charter expires in, I think, March of 22. I checked on the Secretary of State's office. Sometime this spring, they would send out a letter and said, hey, if you guys are still in existence, let us know. And we could probably just let it lapse. So I don't think it'll cost us anything to tell them that we're done. Insurance normally isn't due until December. We'll pretty much be out of operation by then, so I don't think we'll need to renew our insurance. So anyway, I mentioned a couple of months worth of propane tank rental. Big ticket item is sealing and capping the wells. That has to be done according to EPA regulations. They have to fill the wells with a particular material, and they have to cut off the top of the wells below ground level. hopefully I'll be able to sell that metal for something, which I didn't include in here. But that has to be done. And the estimate I got, which was just a verbal today, but probably going to be pretty close, is about $3,500 to do that. So that's an expensive item. It doesn't cost us anything to remove the electric service from the pump house. I don't have the invoice yet from Kirsten Althouse. I just plopped a number in there. I don't know, Andy, do you remember last year what it was?
I do not. I did email her and asked her to send me one, and I'm just waiting
Okay.
for her reply.
So that's just my guess, and it might be high, might be low. I just don't know, and I'm just trying to ballpark things today anyway. There's a couple more months of paying the operator to run the system, at least for June and for July, possibly part of August, but I just put 2 months worth in there, hoping that will be done early August. One Call Now subscription, another $50 is due. And then a couple of months worth of electricity. Again, it might be a little more than that. One of the other big ticket items is that to sell that land as a naked piece of land, we would need to demolish the pump house and remove those foundations. And I did get a price on that, about $3,600 to do that work. If, for example, we were able to sell that land to one of the neighbors there that wanted to leave those, didn't mind and wanted to just go ahead and leave that intact, we'd probably give them a little bit better price on the land if we didn't have to incur that expense. But if somebody wants to buy it as just bare land and wants that stuff out of there, it's going to cost us $3,600 to do that. So we've got a little bit more in expense than what we think we're going to be able to raise by selling stuff off. So it's possible that we're going to have a little bit less than what our cash on hand plus receivables is to disperse to folks. So when we net that out and subtract what we think our expenses are going to be from what we think we can, what we have for current cash assets and what we think we can turn into cash, we end up with about $28,600. We have 48 shareholders. So if you take that number and just divide it by 48 shareholders, that's about $600 per shareholder. Now, not all of those shareholders are current on their bill. Okay. So if a shareholder is current on their bill, if all of these numbers were to hold, which we don't know if they will, but if they were, we would be cutting a check to those shareholders that don't owe us anything today for around $600, give or take. So there are 35 shareholders that are current that don't owe us anything today. So that adds up to about $20,000, almost $21,000. The shareholders that owe us something, these folks, will get a payout less what they owe us. So this is the amount that $600 less the amount that they owe us. So they would be getting much smaller checks, but all but one of them owes us less than the $600 we think that we're going to realize and have available to distribute. Okay. There is one shareholder that I think we're going to have to file a lien on that's still going to be upside down by almost $800 even after that $600 is credited to their account. And if we have to file that lien, we may or may not be able to collect that. But if we would not be able to pay out $17 to each shareholder that otherwise we would be able to if they paid up. So if that is collected at some future time, then we would disperse that additional $1,700 to people at that future time. So if you take the total disbursement, which is this amount that we would pay to the people that still have outstanding balances, and this amount that we would pay to everybody that is current, it comes up to $22,422, which is the same amount as our total, is the same amount of our cash on hand, what we think we can liquidate stuff for, and less our expenses. So that's how we're doing the calculation. So this is all estimate, but I just wanted to give you some idea of how we're planning to determine that distribution. Any particular questions on that? Okay. I'm going to go back to my other screen then. Okay. All right. So that is kind of the dissolution plan that we think is going to start happening sometime in August. So this is kind of back to more routine MAIC business. So the significant things from an operator standpoint that happened this year is that we did have an issue last September where we ended up with excess chlorine in the system due to a failure in the number 3 pump that resulted in the chlorine pump continuing to run even though the water wasn't pumping. So it ended up pumping a bunch of extra chlorine into the system. Our friends at Delco actually came out and volunteered, and they didn't charge us for this. They came out and rewired our system so that instead of the 3-horse being primary, the 5-horse was primary. And they also fixed the wiring so that if one of those pumps trips or fails, that the chlorine injector won't continue to run thinking that that pump is pumping water. So they solved that problem for us, and it hasn't been an issue since, which was really good. We've also had 3 what I call normal service line breaks. We've had 2 service line breaks that happened when contractors were installing new service lines here just recently. And then we did have 3 other main breaks that happened as the contractor was putting in the new mains. I'm hoping that the breaks due to the work on the mains that we're mostly past that, because I think most of the area that they're going into now is a little safer. Certainly we could still have an issue there. But again, we're probably by this point, 75–80% of the mains are in. So that risk is going to be reduced now. The big concern that I'm worried about now is as people install their new service lines. I see that one of them got done today without incident, which was really good. And that actually was one of the more difficult ones, I think. And I know that Plumtree, I think there are only a few houses left that don't have their service in. You should have gotten a letter from Delco directly here this last week, or early this week, indicating that you should make sure that your service line is installed by the 1st of July, because they're going to start pretty soon putting in the meter boxes. When you do have your service line put in, make sure that you give your contractor my cell phone number so that if they hit your existing service line and you don't have a shut off where they can just turn that off to fix it, that they give me a call so I can shut the water off for them to be able to fix it. So just make sure they have my cell phone number. The other things that I just need to quickly review for you as an operator, we do daily chlorine testing, monthly coliform bacteria testing. If there is a system requirement to do a special coliform bacteria test, we'll do that. We have already done nitrate testing for the year and synthetic organic compound testing. And then we also normally would have to do disinfectant byproduct and lead and copper testing. But I checked with the EPA, and if we have the system shut down before the end of September, those tests are not going to be required. So that'll save us some money. EPA reporting requirements. Oh, Andy, I just happened to think as I said that, I didn't see anything in the expenses for lab costs. We probably missed that. So
Yes, we did.
There's going to be some
Okay.
lab cost in the next couple of months. It shouldn't be a whole lot because it's just really the monthly coliform testing, and that's not a big bill. Unless we end up with a, where we have to do a 3-way test. So the reporting requirements that are continuing to be done or will be done until the system is shut off is a monthly operating report, The consumer confidence report, you should have gotten an email from Andre with that. So that has been distributed to everybody. Um, Normally, we would have to update the contingency plan and do a systemetric report. Again, if we get this decommissioned in August, that won't be necessary. And just so you're confident in your operator, the recurrent training requirement was fulfilled in October of 2020. So my license is still in effect until 2022, which I don't want to use that long. Okay, the last slide I have is just letting everybody know that the infrastructure project Zoom is tomorrow night, or Thursday night, I'm sorry, Thursday night at 6:30. And the link is on the Mount Air Water District and the Mount Air Water websites. And as I mentioned, the mainline construction should be done about mid-July. Meter pit installation is happening very soon. And please make sure that you are making your arrangements. And any of your neighbors that you don't see have things in action to get their service lines in, maybe check in with them to make sure they're getting their arrangements made. I've had over the last month, I guess I would say I've had at least 2 people that said, oh, I didn't know we were supposed to do that on our own. So, that's part of the reason for the letter. We wanted to make sure that even folks that aren't on these calls and aren't, getting the updates know that they need to get that service line in soon. So this is what the project timeline looks like. They'll share this slide Thursday night, maybe updated a little from this, but so far this schedule seems to be holding. So we're hoping that everything is going to be completed as far as the main lines by the middle of July, and all of the water line meter services connected by the end of the first week in August. That's the target right now. And then after that, starting in mid-July, they'll start cleaning things up. They're not going to leave this mess that we have, the mud puddles and everything. So, so that is what the project is. Any questions or discussion? Okay, well, we did record the meeting, and so we will be able to post that once I get that downloaded from Zoom. I will send that off to Mark and Andy, and they will get the recording posted so that everybody has access, even if they weren't able to join us this evening. So, anything else before I sign off? Going once, going twice. All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate you joining us tonight.
Have a good night, Bill.
Yep, thank you.